To an aged man God spoke words that sounded like a joke. Soon his wife would bear a child.
Hello friends, and welcome back. This week we'll be looking at the rules of engagement for the cosmic conflict that our world is involved in. Rules of engagement are commonly known as the procedures and standards that are acceptable in civilized warfare. It's what delineates how, when, where, and why military force is used. So for example, it describes the appropriate action regarding unarmed mobs or the use of force in self-defense. One of the most important international treaties that is used to determine the rules of engagement is the Geneva Convention and regulates things like the treatment of prisoners of war or civilians. Eventually, an international criminal court was created to hold nations who use military force accountable for their actions. Because you see, technically, you can't just do whatever you want and get away with it. There are rules, even in wars, that everyone has to follow. As we've come to understand throughout this quarter study, there is a war going on between good and evil, good and bad, God and Satan. And the battleground is our planet, with us humans as participants. Although we don't fully know and understand all the rules and regulations that are involved in this conflict, some parts of the Bible give us a sneak peek into what's going on behind the scenes and how things are playing out. Take, for example, Daniel 10, verses 1 to 14, where we read about Daniel receiving a vision which he did not understand and was troubled by. So he asked God to help him. When an angel finally shows up to help him understand, the angel explains that it had to wrestle the powers of darkness for 3 weeks before being able to come to Daniel's aid. In fact, even Michael, one of the chief princes, had to come to his assistance because the angel was left alone with the kings of Persia. This story of what was going on seems quite confusing, because technically, isn't God all-powerful and can do anything? Yes, He is omnipotent, but we need to look at the rules of engagement to understand what is going on here. Number 1, God doesn't seem to be exercising all of His power. Number 2, Satan seems to have some degree of genuine freedom or power that is not removed capriciously, but is restricted by some parameters. Number 3, those parameters are known by both sides of the conflict, but they are not known by humans. Number 4, certain angels are responsible for certain missions and cannot be replaced other than by Michael himself stepping in. So this is what we know so far about the rules of engagement. And I must say, it is quite frustrating not to know, to have such limited understanding of what's going on behind the scenes. But here's what I do know. God will go to any length to have you and I live with Him eternally. One of the most popular board games in the Western world is Monopoly. It is a mix of strategy, luck, and negotiation. And the goal of the game is to be the wealthiest player through buying, renting, and selling of properties. I remember playing it with my siblings and friends as a child, and the game would go on for hours and hours. In fact, I don't ever recall playing until the very end, because it never seemed to end. The rules say that when 2 of the players go bankrupt, then the game ends. But in our games, that would never happen. Eventually, we would all just get sick of playing and agree to do something else. Today, we continue our study of trying to figure out some of the rules of engagement in this cosmic conflict. And today, our sneak peek into that is found in Revelation 13, verses 1 to 8. In the previous chapter, it was established that the dragon is Satan. And in our scripture for today, we see that the dragon is allowed to give power to humans and human organizations or agencies. So we read in Revelation 13 that a beast comes out of the water, and Satan gives this beast his power. his throne, and great authority. That makes it very, very clear that Satan is working on this earth undercover through political and religious agencies. And he's allowed to do that, but only for a specific amount of time. There is an end date, an expiry date. And unlike our Monopoly game we played as children, this rulership over earth doesn't go on forever. Revelation 12 verse 12 confirms that part of the rules of engagement. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time. So far then, we have knowledge of two more rules of engagement. Number one, Satan is allowed to have a lot of power on earth and work in and through humans, their organizations, whether political or religious. And two, he is allowed to do that, but only for a limited time. There is a universal timer that we don't know when it ends, that marks the end of Satan's reign. As children, our frustration with the duration of the game of Monopoly, as well as how arbitrary some things seem to turn out based on the rolling of the dice, seem to have many parallels with life we're living on Earth. So many things seem unfair or random and don't make sense. Thankfully, though, as opposed to the game of Monopoly, the one who will ultimately win the game is God, and he wants everyone to win as well. Today, we will talk about Job. To be honest, I thought we would have analyzed the story way earlier into the quarter, because it is one of Christians' go-to stories to try to make sense of suffering in this world. It is another fascinating account that gives us a different sneak peek into the rules of engagement of the cosmic conflict. Based on Job 1 and 2, here are some of those rules. Number 1, regularly occurring meetings or councils between God and other celestial beings, including Satan. In those councils, there seem to be dialogues and questions, etc., and everyone present can hear what is being discussed. Number 2, one of the purposes of those meetings seemed to be addressing a pre-existing dispute. Another purpose of these meetings seemed to be to present reports. Number 3, Satan is allowed to slander God's character, to question his actions, and challenges God to prove otherwise. Number 4, in those meetings, in front of everyone present, Satan is given permission to carry out his evil plans to prove his point, but God sets a limit of how that gets implemented. There may be more implicit rules of engagement in this account, but we haven't discovered them yet. This account helps answer some of the age-old question of, why do bad things happen to good people? Here we can try to gain some understanding of how good and evil are fighting for dominance constantly. May we all be like Job, that despite... Let me ask you a question. Do you like to be told what you're allowed to do? Probably not. I'm sure you've heard even little kids resist being told what to do by saying things like, "You're not the boss of me." Yet in some dimensions of everyone's lives, we all have to do what we are told. Now imagine something even more dramatic, having all the power in the universe and yet submitting to another lesser ruler. That would be extremely challenging, don't you think? In John 12, verse 31, Jesus is talking to the people around him and says that the prince of this world will be driven out. He was referring to Satan's rulership in this world. In various other parts of the book of John, we read that Jesus refers to the ruler of this world as someone other than himself, and even specifically mentions that the ruler of this world will be brought to judgment. The fact that Jesus acknowledged that Satan is the ruler of the world, for now, is another sneak peek into a rule of engagement. Unfortunately, this world is under his jurisdiction, at least temporarily, and Jesus admitted it. He also let us know that it is for a limited time, and that there will be an evaluation of sorts to examine this rulership. Jesus also makes it very clear that the prince of the world has no hold over him, implying that the rulership was conceded intentionally, not because Satan is more powerful than God. So God has allowed this dynamic. Even though God is all-powerful, he is playing by the rules of engagement agreed on. Imagine that, having all the power in the universe to eliminate evil right away and not see anyone suffer, but instead choosing to play by the rules that gives each player in the conflict an equal and fair chance to prove themselves. That's just mind-blowing. And I praise God for such a fair government. That's the kind of leader that I want to follow. That's the kind of government I want to be a part of for eternity. Won't you choose him as well? A popular fable tells the story of a dispute that once arose between the wind and the sun about which was the stronger of the two. While they were arguing about this, a traveler came along, wrapped in his coat. "Let us agree," they said, "that whoever makes the traveler take off his coat first would be considered the more powerful of the two." The wind began and blew with all his might, blasting the coldest and fiercest wind it could muster. But the stronger he blew, the closer the traveler wrapped his coat around him, and the tighter he grasped it with his hands. After many unsuccessful attempts, the wind gave up. Then broke out the sun. With his welcome beams he dispersed the vapor and the cold, and the traveler felt the genial warmth. And as the sun shone brighter and brighter, he sat down, and overcome with the heat, cast his coat on the ground. Thus the sun was declared the conqueror, and it has ever been deemed that kind persuasion and gentleness is better than force, and that the sunshine of a kind and gentle manner will sooner lay open a poor man's heart than all the threatening and force of blustering authority. You see, my friends, not all disputes are settled by sheer power. In fact, in the cosmic conflict between God and Satan, it seems that God is really restraining his power and choosing to go on the path of demonstration to win. As in the court of law, someone is considered innocent until proven otherwise. And there are so many allegations against God, so his strategy seems to be to continue demonstrating who he really is, an all-loving God. He will never impose or force himself on humans. He doesn't operate by sheer force. Take, for example, what happened in Mark 6, verse 5. Jesus was in Nazareth, wanting to bless and heal the people there, but he wasn't able to because of their unbelief. Another rule of engagement seems to be that God is able to take divine action if an avenue is opened up through prayer and or faith. In Mark 9, verse 29, we read about the disciples' attempt at driving out demons. But Jesus later tells them that it could only happen through prayer and fasting. He was giving them, or us, another sneak peek into the rules of engagement that he has to abide by. As the author of the lesson states, prayer and faith are not the only avenues through which God can take divine action. But Jesus let his disciples know that prayer is something we can do to activate God's power. There's still so much that we don't know and understand. But let's hold on to the promise in Revelation 21, verse 4, which is one of my favorite verses in the Bible. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away.